Hi and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's grant information session. Today we're here to talk about Assembly for the Arts 2026 Boost Fund. So today we will talk about what is the Boost Fund, who's eligible, how to apply, and we'll also kind of walk you through the process if you are in fact awarded a grant. My name is Deidre McPherson. I'm Assembly's Chief Community Officer, and I'm a longtime arts advocate, sometimes curator, community engagement specialist. And David Patrick Ryan, he works very closely with me on these grant programs. He's our public service fellow from the Cleveland Foundation, and his background is in art, history, and community outreach. So in case you're not familiar, Assembly for the Arts, we're our region's arts council. So we serve artists, arts organizations, and creative businesses or entrepreneurs in effort to advance and strengthen our region's arts and cultural ecosystem. You can learn more about us on our website at assemblycle.org. All right, so we've been administering grant programs at Assembly for many years, and we believe that artists are essential to Greater Cleveland's quality of life and greatly contribute to helping Greater Cleveland be a great city of the arts. So we have done a lot of advocacy in support of getting public dollars to provide grant programs. So we offer grant programs that provide flexible funding, which means that the grant programs don't require that artists spend money on specific projects. Rather, the money can be used to invest in your creative practice however you see fit. In addition, our grant programs are available and open to artists of all creative disciplines, whether you're in the visual or the performing arts, and they're also open to artists of all career stages. With our programs, we aspire to really help artists connect to the resources that help them advance in their career, and we aim to be as fair, transparent, and efficient as possible. So in May, just in a few weeks, we will launch another grant program that's called the Creative Impact Fund. And this grant program will award 22 artists with $10,000 each. Like the Boost Fund, this is also an unrestricted grant, which means that artists can invest that money in themselves and their creative practice in a wide variety of ways with lots of flexibility. And in addition to this cash award, artists receive wraparound support. So that includes workshops in marketing or other areas of business development that can help them, be more entrepreneurial. And we also support our grantees with marketing, and we also give people an Assembly for the Arts membership. So that grant program applications will open on May 13th and remain open through July 17th. So you might be wondering, can you apply for and be awarded both a Boost Fund grant and a Creative Impact Fund grant in 2026? And the answer is yes. You can apply for and receive both grants in the same year. If you'd like to learn more about the Creative Impact Fund, there will be 2 information sessions coming up in the near future, shortly after the grant opens. So you can join us on May 20th or on June 4th for either of those information sessions. If you can't make it to those times, you can look for a recording that will be available. And if you need to register, you can check out that link, assemblycle.org/events. All right, so what is the Boost Fund? This unique grant program is a $1,500 grant that's designed to fill gaps or provide a boost of funding for projects that you might be involved in, artist-specific needs that might involve travel, domestically, or instrument repairs or supplies, materials, a wide variety of uses, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But what's unique about this program is that it involves a random selection. So the Creative Impact Fund grant that I mentioned earlier has a national jury that's made up of artists who reside in other cities across the country. And we have this paid jury that reviews Creative Impact Fund applicants and reads every application. For the Boost Fund, we are simply seeing if you are you meet eligibility requirements, which we're going to go over in a minute. And if you do, then there's a random selection process that is utilized. And the reason why we do a random selection is because we believe that all artists that reside in a county should have equal opportunity to be awarded a grant. And so we adopted this process, which is used in other parts of the country as well. And it just helps remove the competition that is often present in applying for these competitive grants. So the Boost Fund is also unique in that it has 3 cycles. We're currently in cycle 1, which is open through April 13th. There's also going to be a summer cycle in July that goes through August, and then a fall cycle as well. So you're able to apply each cycle until you are awarded a grant. For each cycle, there'll be between 40 and 50 artists randomly selected, and we'll be awarding a total of 144 artists with the $1,500 grant in 2026. All right, so you might be wondering, how many applications can you submit to the Boost Fund? Once again, 1 application per cycle per artist until you are awarded funding. So keep applying, and each application period, spring, summer, and fall, is open for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. So last year was the first year that we actually offered the Boost Fund, and it was the first time we offered the program. We received a total of about 800 applications, between 250 and 300 applications per cycle, which meant that artists had about a 1 in 7 chance of being awarded funds. Last year, we awarded a total of 148 artists with $1,500 each, a total of a little over $210,000. And the recipients were artists who are in every career stage and every creative discipline were represented. All right, so in terms of who is eligible, this grant program is for artists, not nonprofits and not businesses. If you happen to have a business and you happen to be a nonprofit, it's okay, but for your application, you want to be sure to say that you're applying as an individual and not an entity that's a business or a nonprofit. The reason why is because these grant programs are specifically for individual artists. So in terms of how are we defining an artist? We define an artist as anyone that is deriving income from creating, performing, teaching, or supporting the development of art. And in terms of what creative disciplines are included, we think very broadly about how we represent arts and cultures. So it's open to artists in any of these creative disciplines, and each one of them has subcategories. So, for example, in dance and choreography, that's the creation or performance of movement-based works or education, as mentioned. For the literary arts, that's going to include writing fiction, nonfiction, poetry, spoken word, graphic novels, journalism, or arts writing. So you're going to want to review the program guidelines for the Boost Fund or visit our website's frequently asked questions, and you'll find this comprehensive list of creative disciplines that are eligible. And if you have a question, you're more than welcome to reach out to us to ask questions. All right, so also who is eligible? Artists who are age 18 or older, residents of Cuyahoga County, practicing creatives, and artists that have not yet received grant funds in 2024 or 2025 from these specific programs. This is a list of grant programs that have been funded by Cuyahoga Arts and Culture like our artist grant programs. And so we really want to spread the love here. If you've received a grant within the last 2 years, or 2024 or 2025, we're asking you not to apply. You're not going to be eligible again until 2027 or 2028. So be sure to, again, if you have questions about your eligibility, refer to the program guidelines on our website. All right, let's talk a little bit about how to apply for the Boost Fund. So first and foremost, you're going to want to visit the program website. So that's assemblycle.org/boost. And when you get to the website, you're going to find everything that you need to know, from the guidelines, the application questions, the instructions, and frequently asked questions. So we do not offer a paper application. Instead, all our applications for our grant programs are online, and we use a third-party platform called Submittable. It's a free online portal where you create an account, and that's where you'll access the application. So when you go to our website, assemblycle.org/boost, you're going to click this button here that says apply today. When you log into the website, I'm sorry, if you already have a Submittable account, you'll simply log into the website. But if you don't yet have a Submittable account, you'll create one, and you'll see this landing page similar to what you see on the right side of the screen here today. All right, so once you've logged into Submittable, you're going to access the application's eligibility section. So you'll complete a series of eligibility questions that will walk you through just making sure that we're eliminating people that aren't eligible. So if you're not a resident, if you're not a practicing artist, or if you're not age 18 or older, you'll be booted out of the system. So make sure that you're carefully reading those questions so that you don't get booted out. The application will also ask really basic information about your contact info, what neighborhood you reside in. If you don't see your neighborhood represented on the drop-down list, you're simply going to select not listed, but you are still eligible as long as you're a resident in the county. You'll also complete some questions about your creative practice and include some links to view your work. All right, so the creative practice questions, this is where you're going to showcase yourself in your work. This is not a competitive application where your work is being judged and compared from one applicant to another. Instead, we want to know the very basics of your creative practice. So for example, what is your creative discipline? You're going to select one option. We're going to say your primary creative discipline, because we realize that oftentimes artists and creatives operate in a lot of different lanes. You might be a musician and a dancer. You might be a visual artist or choreographer. You'll select the primary creative discipline that you operate in. You're also going to answer a question of a short essay that's 200 words describing your creative practice. This might be your artist statement. We'll ask you to talk about your work as an artist. What's your style, your genre? How long have you been creating? What inspires you to create? That is where you'll share that background, that story about yourself in that 200-word essay. You're also going to include a link to your website, or could be a web page that best showcases your work. If you don't have a website, we'll talk about that a bit later. There are other alternatives. All right, as I mentioned, if you don't have a website, have no fear. There are other ways you can share examples of your work. For example, if you have a social media page, maybe you have an Instagram, a YouTube, or a Facebook page, or a video page like Vimeo or Bandcamp if you're a musician. You can include relevant links to relevant pages like those social media sites to share examples of your work. And another option that's free and also helpful is a webpage called clevelandartsevents.com. That webpage is jointly managed by Assembly for the Arts and our friends at Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. On this website, if you navigate to the artist section of the page of that website, you can create a free artist profile, and you can upload images of your work, an artist statement, and it will create a unique URL that is to your artist profile page. That's another alternative that you can include in your application if you don't happen to have a website or a social media page. All right. So another part of the application is answering the question, how are you going to spend your money? And you're going to see a checklist when you get to this page of the application, and you'll simply check all the boxes that apply. There are a lot of different options that you have to choose from using the money for an event you're hosting, an exhibition, it could be a festival, it could be for domestic travel, it could be for any number of things. You can check as many boxes as you would like. And this really is just to get a feel for, helping us to keep everyone accountable. We're not going to hold you to spending the money exactly how you indicated in the application, and it's okay to be approximate in your estimations. And this is where you'll actually enter some dollar figures. Again, the point of entering this draft budget, if you will, is just to get you thinking about how you'll invest the money in yourself and to hold everyone accountable. So again, we won't hold you to it if your needs happen to change and you need to apply the money towards something else that is permitted with these public dollars. Okay, so speaking of how you can spend the money, a frequently asked question is, what can I spend the Boost grant on? You can use it for artist-led projects that might include festivals, fairs, hosting a workshop, participating in an exhibition or a performance. If you need to spend money on venue costs or permits for displaying or showcasing your work, that's also allowable. And you can also apply this grant towards artist-related needs. So that might include day-to-day expenses like rent for your studio or maintenance costs for your studio, materials or equipment that you need to create new work. If you need a laptop or a camera, technology is covered under this grant. Also travel, because this is a government-funded grant, through Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, which is through the county. The work-related travel is domestic only, but you can use it for if you need to travel for professional development or to participate in something around the country. Also, if you're contracting or subcontracting with hiring other artists or creatives or other people in general, you can apply it towards that. All right, so I talked a little bit about the selection process earlier. Let's go a bit deeper. So all recipients for the Boost Fund are selected through a random selection process. What does that mean? That means that decisions are not made by Assembly staff or a jury. Applications are not evaluated based on the content that you include in your application. We use a random selection generator to do the selection for us. The reason why we're doing this is because it places an emphasis on a core belief that we have that artists should have access to funds to help advance their creative practice, regardless of artistic merit. Again, we do this to reduce competition and subjectivity from the grant process, to really try to level the playing field and reduce some of the stress that might be attached to applying for a grant for the first time or being awarded a grant for the first time. Let's shift gears and talk about what happens if you are awarded a Boost Fund. So what do you need to know? There are a few requirements involved with being awarded a grant. And so we'll talk a little bit about reporting, storytelling, taxes, and keeping your receipts. So typically, So this is a 12-month grant. So you'll be asked to spend the $1,500 within 12 months of receipt of the funds. And for reporting, we'll simply ask you towards the end of the grant period to report how you spent the money. Um, we're going to ask you not really for like a table or a spreadsheet on how you spent the money. Instead, we're going to ask you for a 2 to 3 minute video where you share a testimonial about your experience with the grant and how it helped you advance your creative practice. So again, there's not going to be a requirement for financial documentation or a big long essay at the end of the grant period. It's going to be very simple. If you get the grant, you'll just submit that video. You will hear from us 6 months into receiving the grant, just to hear how you're doing, if you have any questions, and just to remind you about the testimonial video, and it'll give you a deadline and things like that. We will also, when it comes to taxes, so we're not experts, and we advise you to consult with a tax professional who can give you advice on how to set aside a little bit of money to cover any reporting that or funds that you'll need to submit along with your taxes. And we also encourage you to keep your receipts, even though we're not going to specifically ask you for those receipts, just in case the IRS or any tax entity asks you about receipts for your creative practice. It's just a good idea to do that in general. All right, so I mentioned that there is a deadline to spend your grant funds. It's a 12-month grant, so we ask you to spend the full amount within 12 months of receipt of it. And lastly, it's a really simple grant program, the Boost Fund. It should be very straightforward. One thing you'll notice when you get to the application is that it doesn't take long to complete. That's intentional, again, because we want this grant program to be accessible, especially accessible to artists who have never applied for a grant before or never received a grant. If you have any questions, we are here to help. So feel free to reach out to myself or my colleague, David Patrick Ryan, send us an email. A great way to get a quick response. We try to respond to emails within 2 days of receipt. So try to give us 48 hours before you hear from us. It's a good idea to send the email to both David Patrick and myself, but also include this third email, grants@assemblycle.org, just to make sure that we don't lose your message. But we encourage you to stay connected. There's lots of events happening in the arts community that can help you advance your creative practice. We work with a lot of great partners that support entrepreneurial programming. And so we like to include those and other grant opportunities in our monthly e-newsletter. It's called Cadence. I encourage you to join our email list to get those monthly emails. Also, check out Assembly for the Arts on social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And thank you again. We appreciate you listening today. Stay tuned for more information about the Creative Impact Fund, and feel free to reach out to Assembly for the Arts in general if you have questions about our arts ecosystem. And thank you again for all your work in the community to help Greater Cleveland be a great city of the arts. Thank you.